One.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 6 of our Berkshire Health Systems Build Your Armor series. I want to thank you for joining me today and taking time out of your lunch hour to practice a little bit of self-care and learning how to boost your immune system. So I'm Lisa Laramy, and I'm really excited to be with you again on this immune building journey. Last week, I hope you got a chance to tune in. We saw Dr. Jack Ringler, who presented the power of sleep. I really hope you found some of that information helpful. It was a fantastic presentation, and possibly maybe you're feeling a little more rested as a result. So this week, I'm really pleased to share with you some of the amazing benefits of nature and how it can be a really powerful therapy for mind and body. After the slide deck that I go through with you today, I am going to leave a little bit of time for question and answers. So please use our Q&A box, and we'll look at those again at the end of the presentation. And I'll also share with you my contact information as well as the contact information for our Wellness Work Department. So if you do have questions and you want to take those offline and reach out to me or one of my colleagues, we would really appreciate you doing that. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my slides here. So what I'd like to start with is just to kind of give you a little background about myself. So I wear a few hats with Berkshire Health Systems as a manager of the Wellness at Work team and also the diabetes education team. And my background is in disease prevention, and it's also diabetes and cardiometabolic disease. But I also really have a heavy-rooted background in integrative lifestyle medicine. So that may be a topic that's a little unfamiliar to you, but integrative medicine really puts the patient at the center, and it addresses the full range of physical, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, and environmental influences, all of these things that affect your health. So many of our great presenters in this series have shared their perspective from one of these areas around immunity. All areas of this wheel that we're looking at are critical, and they're really important to address well-being. They also address our mental health, and most importantly, these elements influence our quality of life. So on the wheel of health, we'll see some familiar concepts in healthcare, like pharmaceuticals, conventional treatments that are important to bring us back to health if we're sick. We heard Dr. Lederer and his perspective on COVID with his expertise in infection control, and he gave us some powerful information from the conventional realm in week 1. You'll also notice other elements on the wheel like nutrition. Dr. Pettis addressed that in week 2 with food as medicine. And movement. Beth Piantoni gave us a presentation in week 3 that really explained the importance of self-care and moving our bodies. We also learned the role of spirituality in week 4 with Marcy. And again, if you tuned in last week, the power of sleep as an essential self-care tool with Dr. Ringler last week. So our presenters will cover more of this wheel with you in the continuing weeks, but today I really want to focus in on the physical environment. So the physical environment has a huge impact on our health and our well-being. And it's really not just the air we breathe, the water we drink, or the substances that we expose ourselves to that influence our health. But it's also our body's ancient biology that is wired to find connection with the natural elements that we originated from. So I think there's really something quite spiritual and magical about this connection. And I have some wonderful science to back me up on the many benefits that it can bring you. So while many of us, during COVID have had to really change our routines, and a lot of our usual stress reducing activities like going to the gym or, socializing with friends might not be available to you right now, we can say that reconnecting with our natural environment is something we can do to improve our immune system, helps us reduce stress. It can improve our mood with a little risk of getting infected during this pandemic. So it's a safe way to have an outlet for stress relief and resilience. Some of the research that I'm going to share with you has actually led doctors to prescribe exercise in natural environments. Can you imagine having exercise on a prescription pad? It's actually happening today. So the intersection of nature and health and its potential for healing is one of the most promising new developments in medicine. We kind of refer to this as the nature pill, and it's a pill that has many positive side effects. So have you guys ever felt the effect of the nature pill? I'm sure living in the Berkshires, if you're here with me, we're surrounded by it, and I hope you've gotten a dose. For example, have you ever felt refreshed after taking a walk through the woods, or maybe a park or a garden? Or noticed a better mood after sitting by the lake? These experiences in nature may feel like they're only in our heads, but research is suggesting that nature can actually help our brains and our bodies stay healthy and provide a source of deep healing. In fact, it might actually be vital to our well-being to do so. So here on my little slides, just to inspire you a little bit, I'm sharing a few pictures of some of my favorite places, like Zion National Park. It's in the upper left there, where I can say that the subterranean beauty of the canyons rivals the beauty of its highest peaks. It's one of my favorite places. I'm also showing you photos of the White Mountains of New Hampshire. That's the middle and the right photos. I'd say that the lakes and the waterfalls and the mountains really make for an endless playground, and they offer the most lovely views. And in the lower corner, we have Lake Willoughby, and this is in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. That's our lower left. Another one of my favorite places, beautiful mountains that hit the water. And then lastly, in the bottom center, we have our own Pittsfield State Forest in the beautiful Berkshire Hills. I think we're really fortunate again to be surrounded by such beauty and preserved wilderness. I think everyone deserves access to places like this. So enjoying nature really can be an escape for some people. And it also can be a great way to spend time with your friends, whether they're two-legged ones or four-legged ones, like my hiking buddy Sam in the top left there. Nature really helps us connect with the earth and connect with each other, as well as within our own selves. For some, again, it might just feel like you're taking a walk in the woods, but I think these natural spaces really have the power to transform. For me personally, nature has changed my entire state of being. It shifted my perspective from the first time I strapped on a backpack. I really discovered that nature helps my inner world settle, and it quiets my mind chatter. That mind chatter we all have, it's that inner voice that worries about yesterday or tomorrow, and it can really kind of distract us from what's happening in our present moment. So when COVID hit, like a lot of people, including maybe yourselves, I really couldn't stop thinking about it. But I noticed that each time I stepped onto the trail and then I returned to my car, I noticed that COVID had actually vanished from my mind. It was like a miracle. So I found that, allowing myself to become grounded in nature, my veil between the inner and the outer worlds really began to lift. I think that nature is constantly reflecting back to us our inner nature. When we're connected, everything has greater significance. A single flower, maybe a bird in the tree. There just seems to be a deeper understanding of its meaning or significance. It's a place where there's no need for thoughts, just nature speaking and being understood in any one moment. It truly brings a sense of belonging. So as I voyaged more into nature, I began to realize that this state of being is our natural state of being. This is what it's like when we're completely present. So we're talking mindful here and connected with the world around us. And the opposite, our daily lives, we're often distracted by smartphones, we're overwhelmed by information and artificial forms of stimulation, whereas nature can really be a reset button for our entire being. So we now live in a society where people spend more and more time indoors and online, and especially kids. According to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, the average American spends 93% of their life indoors. So if I was to break that down for you, that's 87% of your life inside, another 6% of the time we're spending in our cars, and that leaves only 7% of your entire life outdoors. So that's really only half of one day per week outside. So when we think about the pandemic that we're in, it's really exacerbated this even more as we've been ordered to socially distance. And for most of us, that's requiring us to stay home. We found that city dwellers without access to yards and green space, that they've turned to screens even more because they need to maintain connection to the outer world. So what this type of lifestyle does to our minds is still unfolding as a relatively new way of life in terms of human evolution. It's an interesting experiment we're all in. I'll share that scientists used to attribute myopia, which is nearsightedness, to reading, but it's actually closely related to time spent indoors like moles. The sun primes the retina's dopamine receptors, and they actually control the shape of the developing eye. So if the outdoors shape our retina cells, what does it do to our minds? Many experts argue that we've grown more irritable, less social, we're more narcissistic, distracted. It might point to a reduction in resilience, again, how well we withstand stress. I think, in society, we could all be a little less reactive, more focused, grounded, empathetic. Those are qualities we all want for ourselves. Unfortunately, anxiety disorders now affect 1 in 5. That's 40 million people in the US. We might be suffering from the negative effects of this new digital lifestyle, maybe because we've not yet evolved to adapt to it. We evolved in nature. So, for a species who evolved in nature, how did we get so far away from it that there's often not a hint of it in sight for most of our waking hours? Does your workplace look like this? My little cubicle caption, when were you captured? Many of us are now working from home, but some of us are still in cubicles and staring at beige walls, unfortunately. Various studies have found that if you live in a city with little access to green spaces, you have a higher incidence of psychological problems than people living near parks. So if we can get people interacting with nature more in larger cities, then maybe we might have a more mentally healthy city population as well. So on the flip side, there's hope. If you're a city dweller who visits natural environments, you actually have lower levels of stress hormones immediately afterwards than people who've not recently been outside. So it's okay if you live in a city, but you just have to find ways to escape from it and get that dose of nature to get the benefit. I'll also share that people in low-income neighborhoods feel the ill effects of the concrete jungle the most. There was a study back in 2015, and it found that having 10 or more trees on a city block increases how healthy nearby residents feel. They equate that to an improvement that could be associated with feeling maybe 7 years younger. So again, really shows that urban planning completely affects public health. So we're going to talk a little bit about the biophilia hypothesis. This is the idea that humans have an innate need to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. It's thought to actually have a genetic basis, and it explains why even today we want to buy a house on the lake, or maybe why children love teddy bears, and even why Apple named itself after a fruit. Although I'll say iPhones are certainly not very nature inspired. So nature can help us recover from a stressful event. We find that, if human connection wasn't around, talking about loneliness, you had a sunset, or, hearing bird songs can completely brighten our mood. It's also been found that humans most attuned to the cues of nature were the ones to survive and pass on their genes. It's kind of like Darwinism, right? Changing seasons guide us and other animals with visual cues to gather food for the winter. And the vibrant red of ripe fruit actually beckons us to seek out vital energy to nourish us. So these colors and cues from nature are really guiding us subconsciously. Now, technology has reduced people's desire to interact with the natural world. We know that. And unfortunately, it reduces the appreciation and respect for the diversity of life forms and the ecosystem that supports us as humans. This is a potential factor that contributes to the destruction of our environment and the rapid rate of species extinction. I'm thinking perhaps if we can restore people's connection with nature, this may help us with conservation efforts and maybe even finding a solution with the growing threat of climate change. So healing forests. When we think of nature's best assets to heal, let's start with these forests, which are known to have amazing healing properties. We must remember that we evolved in nature. It's where we feel most comfortable from a biological standpoint. Although I don't know how your kids feel about it, since there's no internet out there, but again, it's been scientifically proven that when we spend time in nature, our brain behaves differently. It affects how we feel and think, and it has a direct impact on our immunity and our healing powers. So here I'm going to share with you an inspiring little clip about how forests heal.
Hey, Lisa, I think you need to share the sound as well, so that way we can hear the video.
There are often moments when your heart is broken, burned, or hurt. When you have to face failure, rejection, or not. So how do you pick yourself up when you are down? How do you start to heal when you are hurt? First, let us understand brain. Over thousands of years, our body and brain have developed a love of nature. There is a part of you which still feels at home in nature. In fact, it has been scientifically proven that when you are in nature, your brain behaves differently. Being connected with nature results in some amazing changes inside your head, which begin to calm and soothe your nerves. Your body picks up these signals to boost your immunity and your healing ability. In our hectic lives, we overuse parts of our brain which deal with logic, information, and decision making. A world of desires and distractions does not give our brain the rest it deserves. The chatter in our head often goes out of control, but most people ignore the signs when some things go wrong. Many people turn to alcohol and drugs. Some resort to medicines and expensive therapies to get relief from symptoms. Only a few spend time and effort in finding the root cause of the problem. Ask yourself a simple question. What is the source of your health? If you rest your mind and reflect, you'll know it's nature. Reconnecting with nature is like resetting your brain. This is a film about forests. This is also a film about you. One cannot escape the ups and downs of life, but one can always find calm in nature. One can always find comfort and clarity in the company of woods. lives inside you. And when you can learn to carry the forest within you, you are always home. Your healing has begun.
So that video was from healingforest.org.
In this series, what I really want to do was to focus on just that one thought, freshness, and was so
Oh
excited to be
goodness,
doing it.
hold on everybody, I've got a video still playing here. Okay. So again, I was saying, sorry for the interruption. That was healingforest.org, and they really have some great resources on their website if you want to learn more about nature healing beyond what I covered today. And they also have a wonderful free newsletter that I really encourage you to sign up for if you want some inspiration on how to, have some more resources to take advantage of the healing powers of nature. So we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of mental health. And when stressed, many of us actually head for Ativan, not the trees. But let me show you how powerful trees can actually be. We know anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues may all be eased by time outdoors, especially when we combine it with exercise. So I'll share with you an experiment that was conducted in Japan, where hundreds of participants were assigned to walk either in a forest or in an urban center, and they were asked to take walks of equal length and equal difficulty, while having their heart rate variability, which is an indicator of stress, as well as their heart rate and their blood pressure measured. The participants also filled out questionnaires about their mood, stress level, and other psychological measures. So the results showed that those who walked in forests had a 7% decrease in sympathetic or stressful nerve activity. They also had a 1.4% decrease in blood pressure and a 6% decrease in heart rate. On the questionnaires, they also reported a better mood and less anxiety. So there you go. There's that nature pill that we were talking about with pretty great results. I'll also share that researchers in multiple studies have also found there's been a decrease in levels of cortisol, that's what's called a stress hormone, by approximately 12% in subjects that are walking in the forest when compared to those in the city. The reasons for this effect aren't totally clear, but scientists believe that we evolved to be more relaxed in natural spaces and that nature helps us recover. Another study that I'll share with you by Texas A&M University was of participants who first viewed a really stress-inducing movie, so think a horror film, and were then exposed to videos afterwards depicting natural scenes. And these subjects showed much quicker, more complete recovery from stress than those who'd been exposed to the videos, and then they saw some scenes of urban settings afterwards. So this tells us that perhaps we don't have to be in nature to get the benefit, we just have to see it. Do you have a window in your office or workplace? You actually might be better off. Just the view of nature out a window is associated with lower stress and higher job satisfaction. So nature we know helps with stress, but did you also know it helps with concentration in both children and adults? Today, most of us are suffering from information overload. Don't watch the news, right? It wears out our frontal lobe where we do most of our formal thinking, and it also limits our field of vision, which narrows as we filter much of what we see, hear, etc., taken through our senses. And none of us are immune to this. Cell phones, which most of us are holding on to all day long, deplete our frontal lobe. So sorry, in that case, smartphones really don't make us that smart. They're damaging our cognitive abilities. So again, these reductions on our cognitive resources reduce our creativity and our critical thinking skills. However, being in nature, we find restores depleted attention circuits, which can then help us be more open to creativity and problem solving. So I'll share with you a little bit more research here. In one study, researchers worked to reduce participants' ability to focus. They overloaded them with distractions. Some took a walk in nature, and then some took a walk through the city, and the rest just relaxed. So there was 3 activities. When they returned, the nature group scored the best on the proofreading tasks. So again, we know it definitely has a good impact on our cognitive abilities. Now let's talk about kids. We found that for kids, green surroundings can also reduce the symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So when we talked about the nature pill, physicians are writing scripts to families to help these children with ADHD. A study that was published online in the Journal of Attention Disorders showed that researchers led children and individually through 3 different environments, a city park or 2 other less green urban settings. Then they measured an increase in attention after the 20-minute walk in the park. And they ended up finding that, again, there was much better benefit to the children that spent time in the green spaces than the ones that were in the urban spaces. So these and similar findings might actually provide city planners with insight and motivation to create more green walking spaces, which all humans, not just children with ADHD, can access. So as I alluded to in the last slide, nature improves creativity and memory as well. I know a lot of us worry about memory loss and keeping our mind sharp. So imagine a therapy that had no known side effects, was readily available, and could improve your cognitive functioning at 0 cost. I'll share a study about this. So there was a 2012 study, and it showed that hikers on a 4-day backpacking trip could solve significantly more puzzles requiring creativity when compared to a control group of people waiting to take the same hike. In fact, 47% more, pretty good. And you don't have to travel to the wilderness to get the benefits. We found that short sessions of nature image have been shown to produce clear thinking and reduce anxiety. Water especially seems to have the most powerful effect. So perhaps at this point you might be Googling for a nature screensaver right now. There's plenty of great ones out there, and try to find one of the water. It really might help. So we're going to talk about phytocytes. This is really where when we move into a pine forest, that smell instantly captures us, and it smells amazing. And it's not just good at Christmas time. Again, we really can appreciate this just by wandering into a forest or having trees in a park or proximity. So these phytocytes, they're basically aerosol from the trees, and they provide some wonderful health benefits. And again, if you can't get out into the forest, you can bring this into your home via essential oils, which are the natural oils that are distilled from wood. And we find that these type of oils from wood are actually very grounding. One of my very favorite ones is called hinoki oil, and that's another name for Japanese cypress. This oil and other oils from trees, again, whether you like cedar wood, pine, you pick, they contain these great aromatic compounds that have some really nice benefits. In addition to lowering our stress, calming our fight or flight symptoms, they also are antibacterial, and they can also in some cases help treat breathing disorders or asthma. So make sure it's actually natural oil. We're not looking for pine sol or something that's fragrance that way, because that can actually do quite the opposite. And then we're going to talk about geosmin. So I know the gardeners out there might be familiar with this. It's the earthy smell of soil from organisms. This is like the bacteria, living and dead bacteria that's in the soil. And this compound is also the source of that earthy taste that you might notice in certain vegetables, like our root vegetables. You might also notice the smell of geosmin after a rainstorm. So some people say they can smell rain. So that's because your biology is wired to pick up on geosmin, very much in a similar way that a shark can smell blood. It really calls out to our biology. So forests, what a cool way to build your immune armor. I'm going to share that cellular activity has really been associated with a forest's possible anti-cancer effects. So they're looking at lab work and looking at these immune cells. And again, research is really indicating that forests actually boost our immune system. So I'm going to share with you a study of Tokyo businessmen, and they had them spend a couple hours each morning hiking over a 3-day period. And they found that these men, as a result, had a 40% boost in natural killer cells. And the coolest part is that 1 month later, they were still at a 15% higher level than before the hikes. So this tells us you don't have to go hiking all the time to keep a long-running benefit. Now, trees also help us heal faster and experience less pain with exposure to natural light. We know that vitamin D has been researched and it's connected with healing, and the best source is Mother Nature's light bulb. A study demonstrated that people recovering from spinal surgery experienced less pain and stress and took fewer pain medications when they were exposed to natural light. Additionally, we found that spinal surgery patients with a view of trees out the hospital window versus a brick wall showed that that view actually helped speed recovery in the hospital. Amazing, isn't it? How many of us see trees, though, or sun in the hospital bed? Perhaps I think we maybe need to redesign our care environments if that's realistic at all. Have you seen the old solariums in older homes? I think they knew back then that sunlight was really, really important, and what's old is new again. We're starting to, I think, get more research that's really explaining the importance of light. Today, if we're fortunate, we might have a sunroom in our house, but if you don't have that, maybe a sun lamp can help, especially during the winter months when we start to lose a lot of the natural light. I'll share that Dr. Mark Pettis, who presented to us in week 2, has a lot of great research on light and suggestions for sun lamps. If you have access, if you want, you can access his podcast on the Health Edge. So nature not only helps us recover, but it also helps us live longer too. I'll share that the percentage of green space in people's living environments has been found to have a positive association with perceived general health of the people that live there. On my slide, does anybody recognize this green space in the photo? It might look familiar to you because it's in our own state of Massachusetts. This is the Rose Kennedy Greenway in Boston. When I go to visit my family who live close by to there, we head here a lot and we relaxed and get some fresh air, get some movement in. Places like this are really important, especially in urban areas, because again, they help us recover from stress, the attention fatigue I mentioned. They encourage the physical activity, whether you want to throw a frisbee or just take a walk. Also helps us facilitate social connection. It improves the air quality with the trees and the plants. Again, the mental health boost that I mentioned earlier, and also again, improves our overall longevity. So I'll share that a study in Environmental Health Perspectives Journal found a 12% lower mortality rate in those with access to green spaces, with the biggest improvement related to reduced risk of death from cancer, lung disease, and kidney disease. I'm not sure why those specifically, but that's still really good results. So if a city doesn't have enough green space for the number of people who live there, I'd say that's a public health issue. If we can get people interacting with nature more in larger cities, then again, maybe we'd have a more healthy, mentally healthy population, and again, an overall physically healthy population as well. It's that important. So we're going to talk about the sounds of nature. Did you know that we're very, very sensitive to sound? I'll share that a plane overhead that we hear constantly and we probably drown it out can actually cause a stress response in microseconds. And again, it's probably happening on a subconscious level for people who are used to it, but trust me, it's happening. I'll share that a study of 2,000 men showed noise above 50 decibels is associated with a 20% increase in hypertension. Now you're going to be shocked when I tell you this if you're not aware of how much 50 decibels represents, but that's about the equivalent to the sound of your refrigerator humming. So when we think about how much noise we're exposed to in everyday life, that just gives you an idea of what the impact could be on your health. Another study of 4,800 adults showed that for every 10 decibel increase in nighttime noise, this has been linked to a 14% rise in hypertension. So again, even while we're sleeping, it's impacting us. I'll also share that on the sad side here, there was some research that was done on elementary school kids near airports in the UK, Netherlands, and Spain. And it showed that these kids had a reduction in memory comprehension, and they also showed signs of hyperactivity, again, because of their environmental noise. So clinical studies have proven that exposure to nature sounds, if you're exposing yourself to about 2 hours a day, this can actually significantly reduce stress hormones and boost healing. So studies, I think, have kind of figured out that this is something that can also reduce blood pressure. They've seen results of anywhere of a reduction of 5 to 7%. And again, I think one of the best nature sounds that has been studied is listening to bird sounds. Whether you have them out your window or maybe you want to look them up on YouTube for a free clip, I would suggest maybe trying 5 to 20 minutes a day. So again, if we're being impacted by some of these unnatural sounds like the fridge humming, perhaps we can counteract it by using the sounds of nature to heal us. So I've shared some of the physical and mental effects that nature can provide. So now let's talk about how it impacts our behavior and our happiness. So we'll start with brooding. Brooding is a mental state that's familiar to most of us, in which we can't seem to stop dwelling on things that are wrong with ourselves and our lives. And this brooding can be a precursor to depression. And it's disproportionately common amongst people who live in cities compared to people who live outside of urban areas. So here's a study. It was a 2015 study. A researcher assigned 60 participants to a 50-minute walk in either woodlands or along a 4-lane road. Before and after the walk, the participants were assessed on their emotional state and on cognitive measures, such as how well they could perform tasks requiring short-term memory. Results showed that those who walked in nature experienced less anxiety, rumination, brooding, and negative affect, as well as more positive emotions in comparison to the urban walkers. And they also improved their performance on the memory tasks. Now, another study I'll share on behavior, researchers in this study asked people to fill out a survey about their emotions while sitting at a table where more or less beautiful plants were placed. Afterwards, the participants were told that the experiment was over and they could leave, but that if they wanted to, they could volunteer to make paper cranes for a relief effort program in Japan. The number of cranes they made or didn't make was used as a measure of their willingness to help. We can call that prosociality. Results showed that the presence of more beautiful plants significantly increased the number of cranes made by participants, and that this increase was influenced by positive emotion, possibly elicited by the natural beauty of the plants. Researchers concluded that the experiencing of beauty in nature probably increases our positive emotion, perhaps by inspiring something we call awe. That's that feeling of wonder when you maybe have a sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. And again, I think that leads us to be more pro-social, more giving, right? So the last benefit of nature that I want to share with you may come at a surprise. How can nature connect us to others? Most people think about creating relationships with people who are like them or people who they like, but perhaps forests can teach us that relationships are built on giving. And the action of giving opens the doors for receiving. So the trees in the forest, they feed the fungi networks. These are the little fungi in the soil beneath the trees with food. And the fungi supply the trees with vital nutrients and a network for communication. They form pathways under the ground like the World Wide Web. Bet you didn't know you were walking over those when you're walking in the forest. So this actually helps trees talk to each other. This may sound crazy, but I swear this is science. And if you want to learn more about this, there's a wonderful book. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees. It's by Peter Wolben, and it really explains how much appreciation we can have for how sophisticated trees really are. So with these bonds under the ground, this World Wide Web, the fungi are able to spread and connect trees to other trees, forming a large network. And this beautiful example from nature can teach us an important lesson. The act of giving starts the process of connecting with others and bridges the way for reaching out to people who can give back to you. So with enough practice, maybe we can become like mother trees, which give far more than they receive, especially to those in need. Maybe we can share our personal gifts to reach out, and this can help take away the loneliness in others, because we, after all, are kind of suffering right now from a loneliness epidemic, especially in this pandemic. So we're going to talk about exercise a little bit. Maybe you haven't been to the gym in a long time for safety reasons during COVID, but did you know that outdoor exercise might actually offer a more rigorous workout than the gym? And I'll say you can safely enjoy exercise in the outdoors, again, as long as we're maintaining a safe social distance. So with outdoor exercise, we actually engage muscles differently. We flex our ankles more when we run or walk on uneven ground versus like a treadmill in the gym. And you know, with treadmills, they're pretty limiting. We can only run flat or uphill, but outside, we actually get downhill running, walking, hiking, whichever you choose. And this uses different muscles and terrain that challenge balance and agility. It can also strengthen our connective tissue and really help us prevent injuries. I'll also say that whether you cycle, run, walk, whatever you do, when we're outside, we get some nice wind resistance too. So I think these benefits are kind of hidden, but on top of that, I think the greatest one of all is that, you know, you get this extra motivation to get to the top of the hill to reach a beautiful view, or, you know, you can possibly feel powered forward by, you know, the beautiful sunset in front of you, or whatever it is that's motivating you visually. And the other thing when you're out in nature is, versus a treadmill, is there's no stop button. So you really have to do the miles when you're out there. But we'll say that people who engage in outdoor activities, they generally report greater enjoyment and satisfaction with their workout experience, and they're more committed to an exercise program. So I don't know if that's true for you, but it is for me. I will say that's absolute. Some studies have indicated that exposure to direct sunlight or reduction in the levels of stress hormone, cortisol from exertion, might actually play a role in this. So we know lower levels of cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline have been shown to boost immunity and also improve our mood. It's that runner's high they talk about, right? And it's also associated with a lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, and improved sleep. So many great benefits. So again, if you can't get to the gym, you don't need it. You just get outside, and make sure, I will say, that you dress for it. So we do have 4 seasons here in the Northeast, unless you're from another part of the country. But I think investing in the right outdoor gear with the right fabrics will help you exercise safely and comfortably no matter what the season. So there's many ways to bring the benefits of nature into your life that I'll share here. You know, you can think about possibly heading to a park or a picnic, you know, grab a book, read under a tree. Maybe you want to spend time in a garden, or, you know, enjoy a simple flower box, or even an indoor potted plant. As I mentioned, because exercise is really important to the health of your brain and your body, it's really great to combine the nature and the movement if you can, maybe even, you know, bringing your dog along if you have one. We all need vitamin D, as I mentioned earlier. So there's, you know, lots of supplements out there, but we know sunshine is the absolute best source. So again, spending time in nature, maybe to get that vitamin D, think about exposing maybe just your arms and your legs for about 15 minutes, until it's too cold, of course. And these sun rays especially will boost your mood, improve your immune system, and, you know, definitely can even help you get through the seasonal affective disorder season. So, you know, just get a little bit of sun, even if it's a shorter day. So here's some tips that, you know, are going to help you bring nature inside. So it's not just outside your door. You can certainly find ways to bring it into your home or your office setting. I think natural light is really important. It brightens our mood. It also boosts our energy levels. So if you're finding yourself tired as you move throughout the day, open the blinds, get rid of the heavy drapes. Now, another thing I'll say is maybe, you know, technology, I've kind of said, is working against us in a lot of ways, harming our health, but you can actually even turn it around and make it work for you. Think about asking Siri or Alexa to maybe play a babbling brook or a birdsong track while you work. Maybe even think about how to decorate your space with the colors of nature or images of nature. That can really kind of bring that joy into your eye when you use vibrant, beautiful greens or other colors that inspire you. And lastly, I'll say plants. Lots and lots of plants. Even if you have a black thumb, which I will admit I do, there are lots of low maintenance ones that you can bring in, and they really do make a difference, and they improve the air quality of your home. So I want to just kind of share with you a little bit about forest bathing. If you're ready to head into the forest, try Shinrin Yoku. That's a practice inspired by ancient Shinto and Buddhist practices. Shinrin Yoku actually means bathing in the forest atmosphere. With this practice, you let nature enter your body through all 5 senses. And it's really about being mindful of your surroundings and the experience. So the research I've shown you today indicates that forest bathing calms the nervous system, it reduces the stress hormone cortisol that we've talked about, and it also boosts the immune system. They found that just 15 minutes of forest bathing will give you some of the results I've mentioned previously, dropping your blood pressure, lowering your stress levels, helping your concentration, and again, improving mental clarity. All of these things in just 15 minutes if you don't have a lot of time. So on this next slide, I thought maybe we could practice a little bit. I know, we're inside and we're doing a virtual today. So I do want to say you don't have to venture off into a state park to experience the impact of nature. And you could possibly think about sitting on a patio or by an open window. Just anything that gives you a view of nature can help you with this. So today I'd like to share a practice that uses your 5 senses, like we discussed with Shinrin Yoku. Today we'll focus on all of them, but if you're not able to tap into one of them, it's okay. You can make this practice anything you like and choose one or all of them to work with. Now, typically when I present this workshop, I usually take the group outside for this practice, but since we're virtual today, I'll encourage you to imagine yourself in the forest on my slide, or again, gaze out your window if you can as I take you through this. If you're on a smartphone or a tablet with data, you may even want to step out your door if you can, as we're talking here. So again, for best results, I'll encourage you to bring this practice outside after the presentation if you have time. So the very first thing we want to do before we begin our practice is we want to leave our smartphone behind. So don't bring it into the forest with you because you want to be fully present. Today, if you're bringing it outside with you, you get a pass because you're using it for the webinar, of course. So we would begin this practice normally by just wandering aimlessly without any goals or expectations. So with mindfulness, we just want to be curious and be open to our experience. Today, I'm going to move right into the senses, but again, normally we walk for about 10 minutes to begin. The other thing that's important is that this practice should always be done in silence. So if you go with others, make an agreement to resist talking until the end of your walk. So after we walk slowly with no agenda in our forest or outdoor space, we're going to then spend the next 10 minutes focusing on one or more of your senses. This is sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. So for today, we won't be spending 10 minutes, but normally that's what I would recommend. So about a 20-minute practice. So today, let's do this meditation with our eyes open because we want to use the sense of sight, whether you're looking at the screensaver or out your window. So let's begin by pausing. We've had busy days. We have a lot on our minds. We just want to hit the pause button here and slow down. And let's take in a slow, deep breath. So inhaling through your nose and exhale out your mouth. With your next inhalation, wherever you are, take an inhalation and engage your sense of smell. Just notice if there's any scent in the air. If you are outside, perhaps the smell of grass or flowers, whatever is around you. We just want to feel our breath, engage our sense of smell, and just continue to inhale and exhale slowly and softly here. Now, if we were in the forest, we would want to find a seat at this point. So I'm just going to invite you, if you're already seated, to just get comfortable. And I want you to observe everything around you. So if you're looking at the screensaver or out the window, I want you to really take in any of the vibrant colors you see, perhaps the green leaves of a tree or the green of the grass, the the blue sky, the way the light shines through the trees. Just really take it in. You might even notice a bird sitting in the tree, or perhaps the fall colors if you have the ability to be looking at some of that scenery. Make these observations as if this was the first time you've ever seen these sights. Just be curious. Working with our sense of sight. Now the next sense we'll work into is hearing. So this is where we want to tune in to the songs of nature. Perhaps you hear the rustling of branches. Again, maybe bird songs. Maybe you hear the wind blowing, or if you're near a brook or a stream, you could hear the gurgling of the water. As we're taking in these sounds, just notice how they make you feel without judging them. Just taking in those sounds. Now this one might be a little more difficult for you if you're not outside, but to engage the sense of touch. Unless you happen to have a plant, like a potted plant close by. This is where we might want to, touch the grass. Or maybe for all of us today, we have the access of feeling the temperature in the air. Notice how it feels on your skin. Or noticing a cool breeze through the window. Or even the feeling of the sun on your face. You could also notice the feeling of the earth beneath your feet. So just really engaging with these senses. And then the last sense I'll take you through seems like kind of a strange one for the forest, but it would be the sense of taste. So what I would recommend for this, unless you happen to have a snack close by today, is to bring something with you, a natural snack like a piece of fruit or nuts. And you can enjoy this by savoring it slowly within, the confines of nature around you. And as you're consuming this fruit or whatever food item you chose, be aware of how nature and humans produce this for you with sunlight, soil, and water. Again, consuming what nature has created for us. So those are the 5 senses. Again, you can focus on all of them or just one. And again, no agenda, just be curious and just see how you feel as you go through this practice. I'm going to leave you with one final thought, that nature is really a beautiful gift and it can help center you and it can alter your perspective to be more positive. So if we really take the time to truly stop and smell the roses, this can really impact your mood and strengthen your mind, body, and spirit. So I want to thank you. That was the slide deck and the presentation for today. I really appreciate your time and I hope you found it helpful. I also want to give thanks to Sam Young for his support today in making this webinar technically sound, and I apologize that the sound was a little low, but I hope that turned out okay. I'm going to share my contact information here. My email is on the bottom of the screen, so feel free to contact me or the wellness team at the number below, the 447-3100, if you have questions that you want to have answered offline. I'm also going to give a shout out to Maria Swaz for next week. I hope you join us for week 7. She's going to be presenting Staying Positive During Uncertain Times. You surely will not want to miss this one. I think it's going to be a really powerful presentation. So at this point, I'm going to open it up and just see if there's any questions in the Q&A box. And I hope again that you've enjoyed this webinar and I appreciate you being here today. Thank you. Okay, it looks like no questions, so I think that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.